Welcome to Battleground Chats, where myself, Craig Goldberg, talk to interesting risk and resilience people around Australia and the world. And today I am really grateful to have Jo Papantoniou join me. Now, Jo and I have known each other for maybe a couple of years.
Right.
We met when she was trying to work out what resilience tools to use. And thankfully, she met me and we started on the Battleground journey. So thank you for joining me, Jo.
Thank you, Craig.
So tell me a bit about yourself. Where have you come from in the risk and resilience journey? How did you get to be in this space?
It was totally by accident.
Usually is.
I was not supposed to be here. I have no business. Being here. What do you mean? Well, it's initially how it felt, right? So I was working at NAB at the time in the operational space.
Yeah.
Running teams within financial crime.
Okay.
And I was asked to run.
But how did you get into NAB?
That was a 20-year journey.
Oh,
so that's how long I was at NAB for.
Wow.
And initially it was a job in a call center, taking calls.
Yep.
So as that I could apply for a staff rate home loan.
Okay. Fantastic.
That's why I wanted to work there, so I could get staff rates.
And 20 years later, in operations.
Yep, I'm in operations. It was such an amazing career. The last 10 years or so of that was in fin crime, and they asked me if I wanted to be the operations manager in physical security.
Oh, yeah.
Which was also looking after emergency management.
Yep.
And that is where I got addicted to the adrenaline of it all. And that is how the journey started. Yeah.
Amazing.
It was awesome.
So that's more in the resilience space, in the physical security, and then you got into crisis and all that.
Correct. So initially there was a really heavy focus on crisis and emergency. But what were we doing to prepare the business?
So that's how you got into the more.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So initially it was all about response.
Yeah. Yep.
But then it became about preparation.
Amazing. So how long were you doing that for NAB?
About 6 years.
And then what happened next?
What happened next? There was a restructure, and I decided it was my time to go.
Yep.
And I was really fortunate, and I landed a role as the resilience and emergency manager at AusNet Services. So critical infrastructure, electricity and gas.
Yep.
And it
different to financial services.
Totally different.
So we do work in both, and they're chalk and cheese.
Chalk and cheese, very, very different. Very much focused on responding to regular protracted events.
Yeah.
Very, very constant.
Yeah.
But also a focus on resiliency. What are we doing to prepare our network?
To withstand. Yep.
The forces of nature.
Yep.
Because.
So was it more in the physical security space or more in the preparation and general resilience space?
The general space.
So that's how you got out of the physical security.
Correct.
It's like one step further.
Correct. And then it was more about leading restoration.
Yep.
But also about strengthening the resilience of the business to be able to respond to events like that.
Yep. Great.
And then from there.
Yeah.
From there, I did a stint for AirTrunk.
AirTrunk, the data center people. Fascinating business.
Yeah, so I was their resilience manager across Asia, Pacific, and Japan.
Oh, wow.
And that was looking at, again...
So that was physical security of their DCs?
Correct, as well as other disruptions, right? Imagine Japan.
Tsunami.
Earthquakes.
Yeah.
So there were all sorts of different things that you needed to look at and be on the ready for.
What constants were there? So what I've learned by talking to people on this podcast is that a lot of people talk about, and I'm big into this, that a lot of the skills and ideas that we use can be cross-industry.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that holds true? Do you think what you learned at NAB helped you at AusNet, helped you at AirTrunk, and then down the track?
Absolutely. I think that the skills and the methodology, regardless of the industry that you work in, are very similar. And that preparation is key.
Yeah.
Preparation is key in everything that you do.
Yeah.
Even if an event doesn't unfold at all, or even in the way that you expected, the preparation alone, I think, is worth so much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get so many learnings from it,
Yeah.
regardless.
Okay. That's fascinating because Air Trunk, amazing business, very different again, right? But data centers is a big, big business. I don't know if everyone realizes how many there are and how big they are and how complex they are.
It's huge. It is huge and growing so quickly across the globe,
Okay.
which is fantastic. And then from there, I did some time at Crown Casino,
That's where we met.
which was fabulous. And again, different threat landscape.
Completely. What was your role there?
I was the group senior crisis manager.
Okay.
for
So
Crown.
focus on now. So now you've moved into the crisis space, less
Correct.
the physical security.
Less the physical security, but again, a really heavy focus on resiliency.
Yeah.
And bolstering the capability within Crown in order to respond to disruptions, because again, very different,
Oh, totally.
totally different.
And when did you start doing the business continuity space?
That was when I was back at AusNet. That is when there was a really heavy
Yep.
focus
Yep.
on making sure that we were preparing the business. You know, what would we do in the event of? What manual processes do we have? How long
Yep.
can we sustain them for?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does this mean for our reputation? What does
Yeah.
it
And
mean
you've been
for
able to
customers?
use that.
Absolutely.
So when you say the word resilience, because you said, focus on resilience, what makes up resilience in your mind?
It's a couple of things for me. One is our ability to respond quickly and efficiently.
Yep.
It is also about having a plan. It doesn't have to be perfect, though.
Yeah.
It's not about perfection, but it's about having a starting point
Yeah.
to at least have a framework in place
Yeah.
where you know that you need to bring together the right people at the right time in the right place.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
That's how I talk about the Battleground when I say Battleground is all about bringing the right people together at the right time in the right place.
It is.
Amazing.
Because, even
And it doesn't have to be, it could be business continuity, it could be crisis, it could be incident, it could be emergency. Any part
Any
of
part of it.
resilience / BCM.
totally agree. And it's about having more than one plan.
Yes, exactly.
More than
Exactly.
one plan.
And what do you mean by that? Or what type of plans? As in scenario or BCIM, crisis, emergency? What do you mean by more than one plan?
I think that we would be silly to think that there would be a single playbook to deal with a single type of incident. And I think that we need to be dynamic and we need to be able to pivot
Yeah,
and quickly
yeah,
when a certain playbook is not working.
yeah,
And we need to be creative.
yeah, yeah,
Because in the face of a disruption is when people are the most creative. If you have the right people in the room.
and the right tools.
Correct.
So the worst ones I've seen, I did some work for a university a few years ago, and they held up a 200 and something page emergency manual. And they had big flood, small flood, medium flood, flood on level 1, flood on level 2, flood on level 3. And by the time you worked out which scenario it was, the disaster was over and you're stuck but it's not in the manual, right?
Yeah.
And so disaster, event neutral planning is how I put it, right?
Most definitely.
But also keeping in mind the risks, right? So certain industries obviously have certain risks and need specific playbooks.
Totally agree.
Okay. And so where do you think the industry is going? So you've done a lot, right? Financial services, critical infrastructure, gaming, data centers. What have you learned that you think will happen moving forward?
The biggest takeaway for me and what I try to think about every day is that what we used to refer to as these 1 in 100 year events,
The black swans?
they're going to happen all the time. They are no longer 1 in 100 year events, and that it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we shouldn't close our minds to the possibility of anything happening
Yeah.
and being prepared
Yeah.
and not frightened of it happening.
Yeah. And that's about being well trained, well prepared, practice.
Very
right?
well practiced.
Practice, and different events. Right. I often have these chats with clients. who say, I need to do a cyber exercise. I said, but you've done that the last 3 years. But the board says, I said, but there are other events.
Absolutely.
And the risk is you get myopic in your view of cyber.
Exactly. I mean, I remember we did a pandemic type of exercise back when I was at AusNet, way before COVID.
Yeah.
And I was saying, oh, this will never happen. Surprise.
Right. Surprise, exactly.
Surprise. Here I am.
Yeah, and if you look at risks and you look at and you have an external view and outward view, you can often pick up on things that, well, why don't we test that? It's interesting, it's out the box, and it enables you to think a bit differently, because it's all about being able to adapt, like you said, in a situation, right?
100%.
Jo, it's been wonderful chatting. Thank you for joining us on Battleground Chats.
Thank you.